In today's show, the Blazers lose because that's what they do twice over the weekend. Chauncey Billups isn't going to lose his job, and Damian Lillard isn't getting shut down yet. Welcome to Locked On Blazers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Trailblazers, your daily Portland Trailblazers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What up, world? It's your past first point guard and Trailblazers reporter, Mike Richmond. You're listening to another episode of Locked On Blazers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, available wherever you get podcasts and also on YouTube. Thanks for making this show your first listen. It's free on all platforms, coming at you every single weekday, Monday through Friday. So make it your first listen. Tell your friends to do the same. It's Locked On Blazers, your team every day. In today's show, we're going to talk about the Blazers losing some more games. It's what they do worst, I guess, or best, depending on your view of the situation. A loss to the Celtics followed by a loss to the Clippers since the last time we spoke. Chauncey Billups not in danger of losing his job. We will talk about that in the second segment. He's here for year 3 next year. Strap in, y'all. And finally, close the show. Damian Lillard says he's not ready to sit out games yet, but it does feel like and sound like there's a time when that's a coming. Let's get into all of that. I would say a fun show, but I don't think the Blazers are doing a lot of things that are fun, but it's a good show. Stick around. I'm happy to have you listening. If it's your first time listening, what a funny time to get on board with the Blazers podcast. I appreciate you. If you're a long-time listener, let's do what we do. Starting with the fastest recap in the West, we got a couple games to go through. Blazers lose on Friday night, 126-112. They're down 8 early. They're down 15 at halftime, 19 after 3, and they kind of made it a game. Damian Lillard, 25 points in the fourth quarter. They were down, cut it to 8 with 3 minutes and 11 seconds left. Cut it to 8 again, just under 3 minutes. But Celtics score 3 straight times, push the lead out, and they win 126-112. This was just a game where they had no answer for the Celtics early. Boston shot 15 three-pointers and took 12 free throws in the first quarter. They want to bomb threes. They were on pace to bomb 60. And when they weren't bombing threes, they were getting to the free throw line. That was a very bad sign. Blazers defense had no answer. And they had no answer for Tatum. He had 18 in the first quarter, finished with 34. Jaylen Brown helped shut the door late. He had 27. 15 from Marcus Smart. 13 from Derek White. 12, 5, and 10 dimes from Al Horford. On the Blazers side, Damian Lillard, 25 in like a 8-minute stretch. He went nuts to give the Blazers a puncher's chance to win this game. He was really stinking good, particularly late. He had 4 of 5 threes in that fourth quarter. He was 2 of 10 entering the fourth quarter. He wasn't shooting well. They were giving him a lot of attention. Early on, it was Derek White on him, and then they switched Marcus Smart onto him. I thought Smart played well on him. And then in the fourth quarter, it just didn't matter. He got to the paint when he wanted. He got threes up when he wanted. Particularly got to the free throw line. It's been a key to his success all year when he's had monster nights, is because he goes to the free throw line and makes them. Great free throw shooter, shoots 17. He's gonna have he had 14 in this game, but it's like he's shooting a career high in free throws. It's become a huge part of his arsenal how much he gets fouled. He finishes with 41 points, 5 assists. Anthony Simons 17 in this game, 5 of 15 from the floor. Not a great shooting night for Ant. 12 for Matisse Thybulle, 10 for Trent Watford, who started in place of Jeremy Grant, who missed both this game and Sunday's game against the Clippers with that bruised quad that's still bothering him. Pretty tough night for Yusuf Nurkic against the Celtics. He finished with 6 points and 8 boards in 25 minutes. Cam Reddish had 10 off the bench. Shaedon Sharpe added 7, and this game wasn't. It wasn't a beatdown, but it was never particularly competitive. The Blazers led for a total of 15 seconds all weekend. The last time we talked, I recorded an episode on Thursday night. You heard my voice on Friday. If you're listening to the show, if you're not caught up in Friday's show, the Blazers heading into the Celtics game, it's looking a little rough. They led for 15 total seconds. Jason Tatum made a layup with 9 minutes and 8 seconds to go in the first quarter on Friday night, and the Blazers trailed for the remainder of the weekend, briefly tied with the Clippers a couple times, but trailed for the remainder of that game. Did not have a lead for the final 93 minutes of the weekend. gross. In the Clippers game, they got behind big early, trailed by 15 in the first quarter, but battled back, down 36-30. Oh, that's your fast recap in the West for game one. We're getting into game two. Play the Clippers on Sunday nights, and they lose this game as well, 117-102. You will notice they didn't score 115 points in either game, which means they did not have the opportunity to win either of them. They weren't good. I did either and either in the same sentence. That's pretty special. But, this team has to score to win. 112 is enough to win against the Celtics, but they couldn't stop the Celtics, so help them. And 102 is not enough for this team to be competitive. Not enough for them to be competitive in a game. They lose by 15, 117-102 to the Clippers. Like I said, down 15 in the first quarter. It's like, this is not looking good. But they battled back. I thought they played pretty well to close the half. Down 6 after 1. Yusuf Nurkic had 13 and 2 in that first quarter. Good. He has been not very productive since he returning from that calf injury. This is by far his best and most productive game. And Blazers even tied this game up 44-all in the second quarter, went into halftime down 4, have a chance to be right in it. The Clippers, they're not one of the bad teams, but they've been really inconsistent this year. Basically, when Kawhi Leonard has played, they're good. When Kawhi Leonard hasn't played, they're bad. Kawhi Leonard played, they were there for the taking. Down 15, you battle back, only down 4, head into the locker room. And in the second half, they never had the ball in a one-possession game. Never had the ball with a chance to tie or take the lead, down 2 or 3. Never had the ball. Didn't give themselves a chance. Down 93-90 after 3 quarters, head into the fourth quarter, the double-digit deficit, and get close. 7 minutes left. This is a 6-point game. Yusuf Nurkic scores inside, 103-97. For as poorly as they've played, and they did not shoot well in this game, as poorly as they've played offensively, it's like you got to win the last 7 minutes by 7. That's it. And they don't. So they end up losing this one 102-117. Damian Lillard, 21 points on 4 of 17 shooting, 1 of 8 from 3. He had a brutal shooting night. Anthony Simons, 16 points on 1 of 7 shooting. Nurk, 23 points, 11 rebounds, 5 assists, the Blazers' best offensive player. I mean, Dame is the engine, but Nurk, most productive offensive player. 12 for Trent Watford off the bench, who did not start in this game. Cam Reddish got the start, and he went scoreless in 19 minutes. 6 for Thibault, 10 for Drew Eubanks, who had a nice game, 10 for Shaedon Sharp. I might have already mentioned him. 12 for Trent and Watford, 4 off the bench for Nazir Little. The difference, the change in this one that I thought was necessary was putting Cam Reddish into that starting lineup. The starting lineup with Trent and Watford, Matisse Thybulle and Yusuf Nurkic, just too many non-shooters. It's too easy to guard. They need another. When Grant is healthy, it makes sense to keep Cam off the bench because you get that other ball handler. When Jeremy Grant isn't healthy, I think he kind of just, at some point you just got to say we need to make it easier on Dame and Anthony Simons. They did. I thought that was the right move, and Cam Reddish struggled. He's been inconsistent. When he's been good, he looks really good. When he's been bad, you don't notice him. That was one of those games. The Blazers finished 6 of 29 from 3. They didn't lose this game because they shot poorly, but I don't think they played way better against the Clippers than they did on Friday night against the Celtics, where they kind of just got pummeled. Like the Celtics got whatever they wanted, and Dame went heroic and made it close, but it was like not down 8 with 3 minutes left. It's like, okay, we need everything to go perfect. Literally, Dame turns the ball over out of timeout. They score, get another stop, score again. It's like, okay, 13. Score a third time on the next trip down the floor. 15. Okay, this game's over. Like, see ya. It's like they had to be perfect to get back, and they needed Dame to be like a superhero, and my man dons the cape pretty often, but that was not an impressive game at all. It was a bad game for him against the Celtics. Celtics are really good. After that game, Chauncey Billups said, the Celtics are better than us, and he was right. The context of that quote was just like shared on Twitter, like the Celtics are better than us, in a perfect way for people to freak out. Good job, social media. But it was like, we can't turn the ball over as much as we did, and we can't give up as many offensive rebounds. He's right. Like Chauncey Billups, that's correct. When a team's better than you, you can't give them extra possessions. The Blazers did that. They got punked. I don't think they played poorly on Sunday. I don't think they played well, but they played noticeably better. They shot a bunch of bricks. Dame and Ant missed shots they can make. This is like just another night where they needed a third guy to be, a third sort of creator, a Cam Reddish, to go off. That's maybe a bigger ask than Reddish is capable of. And when Kawhi Leonard was on the floor, they were really good. I don't think, the Clippers are like susceptible to incredible letdowns. Basically, whoever's been wearing their jersey for 15 years, that's been the case. And that's just the time that they've been a good version of the Clippers. But I don't think, like, if these games had happened in reverse order, you'd say, whew, they're really letting go of the rope. But I don't think, like, I think they responded from a pretty crappy night on Friday to have a good, like, a good showing, I guess. Like, I don't think they played well. I'm not trying to say, like, hey, you know what? If they just make a normal number of shots, they win this game. I don't think that. I just think they shot poorly and they were competitive in this game. They battled back from struggling early. They didn't like totally get blitzed until the end of the game, and really like they were down. It wasn't double digits until late when the game was like truly over. Though they played pretty well. I thought it was not a game where they played well enough to win. They did not deserve to win. It wasn't a make or miss type game where they just missed. If they shoot make a normal percentage, they would have won this game. I'm not selling you that. What I'm selling you is that the Clippers game wasn't that bad. It wasn't that bad. Guess what? Chauncey Billups, he coached both these games. He's going to coach all the games next year too, or at least the first chunk of them, because he's not going to lose his job over the summer. According to reporting from Jason Quick of The Athletic, the Blazers are not considering parting ways with Chauncey Billups this summer. So year 3 of Mr. Big Shot will be back in the fall. Let's talk about what that means and just in general. Let's talk Chauncey in the second segment. But first, I want to tell y'all about PrizePicks. It's daily fantasy made easy. I play PrizePicks. I play on the app. You can check it out there as well. Or you can go to prizepicks.com. Whatever it is, you're going to have fun playing because you just pick your sport and then you pick pick players between 2 and 6 players on every entry, and you just pick above or below the lines set by PrizePicks, the projections set by PrizePicks. I play basketball, but you can play whatever sport you're looking for. It's all going to be on the app there for you. But it's things like points, rebounds, assists. PrizePicks sets the line. You pick over or under that, and you're just playing against the projections that are out there. It's not no field, no sharks, no nothing. Just you versus what PrizePicks sets. And so right now, go win yourself some money. If you're a first-time user, go to prizepicks.com, download the app. When you're signing up, use the promo code LOCKEDON to get a 100% deposit match up to $100. That means you put in $100, get $100. Put in $50, they'll match you $50. Just simple as that. So go take advantage today. That is at prizepicks.com, or download the app in your app store and make sure you use that promo code LOCKEDON. All right. Let's talk about Chauncey Billups, shall we? Friend of the program, Jason Quick, wrote a story in The Athletic. The Blazers are not considering parting ways with head coach Chauncey Billups after his first 2 seasons. Billups under contract for 3 more years after this one, and the Blazers are not inclined to change the head man. Going to give Chauncey at the very least, he will open the season as their head coach. That is according to an unnamed source quoted in the Athletic piece by Jason Quick. I will link it in the story description below. It's behind a paywall, so you got to pay for it. If you don't, you will just have to take my word for it, what I'm going to talk about here in this segment. The source says like they haven't even considered moving on from Chauncey Billups, and then Quick. I mean, credit to Quick, right? This is the thing that Blazer fans want to talk about. They're mad at Chauncey Billups because they think he's like inept, and he's the reason that the season is going south. Not everybody thinks that, but I think there's a vocal part of the fan base that thinks Billups is the primary reason for why the Blazers stink. And to be clear, the Blazers do stink. Let's be 100% clear. Let's also be clear about this. Chauncey Billups has not done a good job as the head coach. Both things can be true. But guess what? He's getting the full endorsement from some of his players. Quoted in the story, Damian Lillard, Anthony Simons, and then most boldly, the strongest backing from free agent to be Jeremy Grant, which I think is in general you would read as a good sign. They all say that Chauncey Billups is not the reason for the struggles. He's a good coach. He in fact holds the boat together even during a trying season. And Grant says he's even been the bright spot of the year, bright spot of the team during a difficult season. That's a heck of an endorsement. I will say this. The inverse of this story doesn't exist. Let me be clear what I mean by that. If they are considering firing the coach, you don't, a source doesn't say, yeah, his ass is gone in March, right? Like, maybe they do, but they just, like, I've been in the game. They just ignore your text message. They ignore when you try to approach them pregame, they ignore you. They ignore your phone calls. Like, if you're, you're trying to talk to someone, the language is a high ranking person in the Blazers front office, whoever that might be. When you're trying to talk to the high-ranking person in the Blazers front office, they just blow you off. If the answer is, yeah, we're going to fire him, they either they tell you, but you can't do anything with it, or like, no. But if they're going to go on the record as a source, like not with attribution, but on the source, it's like, it's always going to be in the positive. It's always going to be affirming the belief in the coach. That's how the inverse of the story doesn't exist. It doesn't get written. The players in the locker room, you talk to Anthony Simons, you talk to Damian Lillard, talk to Jeremy Grant. Those gentlemen are too smart to say, this dude stinks, get rid of him. Even if they think that, they are going to give, if not a full-throated, at least the half-hearted version of like endorsement of the coach. Say, he's done a good job. It's our responsibility. Like, they're going to do the mature thing. So what I mean by the story doesn't exist in the inverse is like, if you try to write this story and it's like, yeah, this dude's getting fired, it just doesn't, like, you don't get it in March. You get it in July. And this, like, I'm not trying to throw shade at Jason. Like, this is the story you've all been, many Blazer fans have been curious about. He went and got it. Like, it's actually very good reporting. What I'm saying is, like, of course they endorsed him, y'all. What else were they going to do? But this isn't about their endorsements. In fact, in general, like, I think the Jeremy Grant endorsement is curious because Grant's entering free agency, right? I think it's a good sign that he wasn't like, yeah, he's been pretty good, like or that he was the most vocal in his support of Billups. But I just think in general, it makes sense to me that the Blazers are giving Chauncey Billups year 3. One, is expensive to get rid of him. I don't have a great grasp on the willingness of the Blazers ownership to spend. I know that they have actively stayed out of the luxury tax this year, but this team's bad and they're bad on purpose. Of course, they're not going to be a tax team this summer. If they come back in the fall and they are an expensive roster, the score of the game. You could start lighting up the ownership group. Scared money does not make any money, as the wise folks before me have said. They're gonna have to be if they plan on being competitive and having Damian Lillard and Anthony Simons or someone with a similar salary to Anthony Simons and Jeremy Grant on the roster. Like, this is going to get expensive and they need to pay. If they don't, then we'll talk about the ownership group. But for now, it's like, it makes sense. If you fire Chauncey, you got to pay him. Also, the Blazers' biggest issue this year is that the roster is bad. It's not the only issue, and it's very easy for me to sit here and say, like, I don't feel conflicted about this, to say that Chauncey Billups has not done a very good job this year. The roster's the biggest problem. Chauncey Billups hasn't coached this roster, which isn't good, well. To me, I see those as very easy to say yes and both. I think in general, there is a tendency to want this to be binary and say, Chauncey bad, Blazers good. Team good, coach bad. Team bad, coach good. Whatever, right? Like, it's never binary. And if you're a longtime listener, you know that I think that coaching is, I don't think it's meaningless. I think I've been misrepresented on the internet a couple times by people quoting me. I don't think coaching doesn't matter. That's not it. I just think it's a smaller portion of the equation than talent. And the Blazers' biggest issue is talent. They didn't sign a center all year. They never put a player, a third player taller than 6'9" on the roster. The two-way spots, they chose to go with developmental pieces who are a long way away from being positive NBA contributors. That's probably a responsible way to handle it, but if you're trying to be as competitive as possible, there's a different way to handle those two roster spots. There's a different way to handle the 15th roster spot. You could waive Ryan Arcidiacono and sign a tall person. You could just do it. You could do it. You could have engineered a trade for a tall person at the trade deadline. You could have taken on James Wiseman's contract and not dealt with the Warriors in the way they did, where there's like, let's get Atlanta involved and get the second round picks. Like, you could just there's different ways to do it. there's plenty of ways to do it, to get a tall person on the roster. They chose not to. They have really, 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 really missed Justice Winslow's contribution. Justice Winslow was arguably the worst shooter in the NBA when he got injured this year. He's having one of the worst shooting seasons of anyone in the league who's playing major minutes. And the Blazers desperately miss him. That speaks volumes about the weakness of the roster. If a team is set up that they're just like, well, Justice Winslow's hurt, our whole plan's tanked. Like, that's not a good team. That's not a good roster. And yet, I have no trouble looking at this team and saying, like, I don't think they've gotten better at any one thing. And that feels like a coaching issue. What you want to see is, like, not this team be good. Like, it's even better than they are. Like, they shouldn't be as far back as they are. They shouldn't be 13th. They should be in the mix with all of the rest of the mediocre teams fighting for a play-in spot. And instead, they're heading the other direction. Despite playing their dudes, Ant played 33 minutes a night. Dame played 38. Like, they attempted to win both these games over playoff teams over the weekend, and they led for a total of 15 seconds. Like, they're just not good. I don't think you can point to the roster and say, like, oh, from last year to this year, this is definitely better. Shaedon Sharpe has improved a little bit from the beginning of the season. Nazir Little has improved his shooting a whole bunch. To me, that's skill work. That seems like this file it under players play, as I do. Damian Lillard's been incredible. I don't think that's a coaching thing. Anthony Simons has absolutely played his best basketball under Chauncey Billups, without a doubt. At the beginning of the year, Jeremy Grant was having a career year under Chauncey Billups. I think both of those guys have. Jeremy Grant's kind of plateaued a little bit, and Ant hasn't been able to take the same steps on a team that wants to win, and even win the minutes that he's played without Dame. He just, like, it's not like Ant hasn't been bad, but it's not like Ant has taken more major strides. But undeniable, those two gentlemen played well under Billups. I just don't think, like, you could point to something on the that they're doing this year that they did last year and say, oh yeah, they're definitely better. Defense is not better. Offense has been better, but it's mostly just because Damian Lillard's healthy. I don't think Billups has been very good. And yet, I think it's totally reasonable that they would bring him back because they did this on purpose. The real damning thing for Chauncey is the beginning of his first season when he was a brand new coach to the league. That group, which was like playoff caliber good, the roster was totally fine, significantly better than this year's roster. Check the tapes. I was saying that in the fall. That group wasn't, they were 10-8 at one point. It was like the furthest over 500 they were at any point deep into the season. Like, they're never good. But Dame was hurt and the vibes were terrible, and you could easily throw that one away. That was damning, though, that they were never good and they had to go that direction. And then they pulled the plug, and you can't really fault Chauncey for that. This year, again, it's like they pulled the plug. That's a front office thing. And this year, they didn't build a team. That was a team that was so obviously flawed, and like intentionally so, that they never addressed the flaws. The front office did this on purpose. Of course, they're going to let Chauncey have another crack at it. Of course they are. Of course they are. I don't think Chauncey Billups has done a good job. I don't know enough about, like, who's available out there coaching to be like, this is my guy. Like, do I think, like, Mike D'Antoni would do better with this team? I have no bleeping clue. In fact, in general, it's hard to know who's going to be a good head coach in the league until you see it happen. And in general, I think we judge coaching really weird. Eric Spoelstra, a really good coach on a Miami team that is struggling this year, but we all agree Eric Spoelstra is a really good coach. Mike Brown, really good coach because the Kings are winning. So does it matter what the team's record is, or does it matter the perception that we've previously held, right? Jason Kidd, really good coach when the Mavs were good last year, really bad coach when they're struggling this year. It is a weird way that we talk about coaching. It is a very results-based business. And it should be, I mean, for sure. And I do not think Billups has done a good job this year, but I'm not surprised they're going to give him a chance with a more competitive roster. From what we've seen, I'm not like, don't worry, he'll figure it out. I'm not selling you that. What I'm selling you is like, I'm not surprised that they're heading in this direction. And I don't think it's like, if the team is good, the coach will look better. And we'll be able to judge his actual sort of coaching acumen, right? Like they both go hand in hand. I think that's fair. I've gone a little long on Chauncey, unsurprisingly, but let's talk about a couple other things in the third segment. But before we do that, I got to give out a little bit of hardware. Just your classic. Most Electric Player of the Week brought to you by Nissan Aria. Look, it's the all-new, all-electric Nissan 2023 Nissan Aria. It's brilliantly fierce, fiercely elegant, some would say, stunningly powerful, much like a 25-point fourth quarter from Damian Lillard to give the Blazers a puncher's chance, much like 21, 9, and 7. A darn near triple-double a night he did not shoot well against the Clippers. He's got that duality of fierceness and elegance to his game. He's beautifully strong. Someone might even call him elegantly powerful, electric, much like the perfect SUV crossover, the 2023 Nissan Aria, which packs pin-to-your-seat power and premium intelligence all in one EV. The all-new, all-electric 2023 Nissan Aria, the EV for people who love to drive. Shop now at nissanusa.com. Today's show also brought to you by Built Bar, the best tasting protein bar on the market. 17 grams of protein, 130 calories, just 4 grams of sugar on average, and 4 net carbs. Tastes great, packs real fuel to keep you going and what you need to do. Plus, covered in 100% chocolate. The sweet little treat that's going to get you ready to go. And plus now available at Walmarts and Sam's Clubs in your area. Go check them out. Buy a 4-box, find out what you like. Once you find out what you like, go back, buy the big box. You get 13 in that bad boy. Take them home, enjoy them. I bet you will. Or if you like shopping online, go to built.com and use the promo code LOCKEDON15 for 15% off. Check them out. Built Bars. Still a pass first point guard. Still Mike Richmond. You are still listening to Locked On Blazers. Portland ain't tanking. Just good old-fashioned losing. But they don't have many left. They've played 71. They're 31-40. Guaranteed, all but guaranteed. I guess they could rip off some wins. I should slow my roll. Lost 40 games. It's going to be a team with a losing record. They're not in a good spot. And yet Damian Lillard played 38 minutes tonight. He played 38 minutes. Like, that's a team going for it. However, on Thursday, over on hashtag This League Uncut, which is the podcast by Mark Stein and Chris Haynes. Chris Haynes shared at the very end of that podcast an interesting little tidbit that the Portland Trailblazers probably going to shut Damian Lillard down after 5 or 6 more games. Now, if you're scoring at home, 2 games have passed. That would be 3 or 4 more left. And Damian Lillard was asked about this after the game against the Clippers, and he said he's just not there yet where he's ready. He's ready to not play. He's not in a position sort of like emotionally, mentally where he doesn't want to compete. He's a dude who wants to, he wants to try to win games. He has some incentive. Like he could be, I don't think so just because of how bad they are, but like he has a very legitimate case to be a first-team All-NBA player. Like, he's been that good this season, arguably the best point guard in the league all year long. He's been really, really stinking good this year, and he's going to get rewarded in some form or fashion for it. He's got an outside, a puncher's chance at least to get the, to win the scoring title. It's going to be hard, but if anyone could do it, it's Damian Lillard, who's been just a prolific scorer this season. Joel Embiid's on a tear because he wants to win MVP. But he could track down Luka and Joel. Sure, it could happen. Like, he has some incentive to keep playing and going for it. It's average points, not total points. Probably should be total points, but that's a conversation for another day. But the implication of Dame's response is that there might come a time that he's ready to sit out. And Haynes, dude's a Dame whisperer. Like, he was invited to Damian Lillard's wedding. Like, Haynes knows what's going on in the Lillard world. You don't need to second guess it. You might need to closely read it, I would say, but you don't need to second guess it. Like, the dude's not wrong. If there were at the time when he said it on the podcast 5 or 6 games left of Dame's season, I'm willing to wager the Blazers have had the conversation with Dame that says, hey, look, we're 13th in the West as of recording this now, 3 games out of 12th. The team they're chasing is the Orlando Magic to see if they can lose more games than Orlando for the remainder of the season and finish with the 5th best lottery odds. They're heading the other way. Right now, they're not doing it on purpose. Like, they're just playing out the string and losing because they're not very good. But there might come a time where they say, listen, these final 5 games, Ryan, Archie, Diacono. And if Arch takes us to the promised land, well, it'd be really surprising because Damian Lillard can't. Damian Lillard's like going to be like a second or third team All NBA, and he can't. So if Arch does it, whoo boy, would that be special. I think it's fair to right now, if you're a fan of this team and you're listening a half hour into this podcast, thank you. Thank you. I sincerely appreciate it. Go buy some Built Bars. Maybe get a certain electric vehicle. Kidding aside, like, if you're a fan of this team, it's okay and probably right for you to want them to lose. It's probably right for you to watch them lose and say, here we go. It's probably right for you to watch the Orlando Magic win a game and you're like, let's go. Like, all in on the Magic, getting hot down the stretch. And that Wendell Carter Jr. finding his rhythm. Paolo Banchero solidifying himself as Rookie of the Year. Jalen Suggs, an elite defensive presence, playing great. Like, is probably right for you to root for the Magic to win and for the Blazers to lose. Like, you've made that point. You've made it this far into the season. I think it's beyond reasonable to say, like, yeah. I would rather them lose. Sure, rooting for that is fine, and to some extent, wouldn't it be easier if they just were out front with it? Wouldn't it be easier if the starting lineup was, Ryan Arcidiacono and Shaedon Sharpe and Kevin Knox and Jabari Walker and Drew Eubanks, play a little Trent Watford off the bench, play a little bit of Nazir Little off the bench, give John Butler Jr. some minutes and call it good? Like, wouldn't that just, like, at this point deep into the season, at that point, wouldn't an out and out tank in some ways feel better than going out there and trotting out a team that fancied itself a playoff team at the beginning of the year? Sure, they're missing Jeremy Grant, and he's a big part of what they do, and it makes everything easier on both ends. But, like, and they led for 15 seconds against 2 teams. Like, the fact that they're, like, non-competitive in these games, not getting their butts totally kicked, but they're getting Heisman Trophy. They're just getting the full stiff arm. Like, no, you will not be competing in this game. Like, they didn't trail by 20 in either of these games. Down 16 was the largest deficit in both Friday and Sunday's game. But they led for a total of 15 seconds. They never held a lead in the second half of either game. They trailed the Clippers wire to wire. They briefly were tied in the second quarter and then were never within one possession in the second half, and that's with Damian Ollie Lillard playing 38 minutes and 41 seconds. Anthony Simons playing 33 minutes. Like, this is a team going for it. They're trying to win the games. At some point, I think it might just be easier if they were like, we stink. The season didn't go the way we wanted, except for Joe Cronin. It went the way he wanted. One ball guy sitting in the front row was like, mission accomplished, baby. I actually think they wanted to be better than this, but now at a certain point, it's like, whoops. I don't think they obviously didn't give themselves a chance to be, like, truly competitive, not in, like, a serious way, but I don't think they wanted to be this. I think this is my read on it. And I'm not super close. I've been to one game since October or whatever. Like, I'm not in the building, like, chatting with people, but, yeah, like, it is, my read on it is that they wanted to be in the play-in mix and then maybe miss the playoffs from there, as opposed to where they are, where it's like, okay. We're not good. Let's, what they tried to do when they were going to have to trade Josh Hart, but the way that they went about trading Josh Hart, prioritizing a first-round pick, not necessarily size. Matisse Thybulle, nice get for the price that they paid, but, like, the way they approached the trade deadline was not a team trying to get better. It was a team trying to think about the future. We talked about it on the show, or I talked about the show immediately when it happened. It's like, I think the Blazers got worse, and they got worse on purpose. It's fine, right? Like, they were that deep enough into the season that they weren't any good anyways. So it might be better if they just cut the facade, stop playing Dame 38 minutes, and if he says he's not ready yet, and if Chris Haynes says it's coming in 3 or 4 games, there's going to be a point when it happens. Dame might not be ready. He might not even be ready then, but he might just understand what the deal is and that they're chasing Orlando, not New Orleans. Certainly not OKC in 10th. Shout out to Mark Dagno and the OKC Oklahoma City Thunder. They're in eighth as I record this. T-Wolves lost. So, I mean, like, yeah, it's here. From little T tanking, just good old-fashioned losing games because you're not good, to big T tanking. It's coming soon. Guess what? Podcast isn't going anywhere. We'll be cruising along 5 days a week until friggin' August. So stick with us. We got more to talk about. Blazers play more games this week. We'll be there. Going to try to track down some interviews. Do what we do. We have fun on the show. If you're listening this deep into the podcast, you enjoy it. So come back for more. I appreciate you listening. I'll talk to you soon.